is Rowan Curtin, Operations Director.
And my name is Damian Delfino, Technical Director. And we are RIT Racing, the fastest club in Rochester. We're here to share with you our research on ways to improve FSAE and team outcomes. Here's our agenda, which will remain at the top of the screen as we move through the presentation, along with page numbers at the bottom right. For over 33 years, RIT Racing has been a leader in Formula SAE, having competed in the combustion competition for 27 years and EV for 6. Throughout our history, we've pushed the bounds of competition through constant innovation, culminating in our win at FSAE Michigan EV 2024. Now, we believe it's time for the competition itself to make a change.
The mission of Formula SAE is to prepare students for future careers in the mobility industries by giving them a space to design, build, compete, and ultimately to learn. This is outlined by the very first rule in the FSAE rulebook, but for teams whose cars fail tech or break down, or who simply can't make it to Michigan due to the costly travel, Formula SAE is not yet meeting its mission.
Since the pandemic, FSAE Michigan is the only official North American event. And that's a problem. This single competition model has 3 major flaws. First, most teams don't complete all dynamic events. Shown here, in 2024, only 37% of IC teams and 24% of EV teams finished all events. That means the majority of teams never got to fully test their designs at competition.
Second, teams only get one chance to learn and improve. If they discover a reliability issue or a setup tweak at comp, they have to wait an entire year to apply it. While many of these lessons should be learned in testing the car prior to competition, for some teams, Michigan is the first time they ever actually drive their car.
Third, MIS isn't a local track for most. Teams from California, Texas, or even Mexico drive for days, often on no sleep. It's expensive, exhausting, and in many cases, dangerous. This isn't just a logistics issue, it's a safety concern.
We dream of a Formula SAE competition where nearly every team passes tech, completes dynamic events, and where everyone has multiple opportunities to succeed.
In order to achieve our dream, we're proposing to you, members of CAR, the Formula SAE series. Inspired by professional motorsports, the format will shift to 5 smaller 70-team competitions instead of 1 major event. Each team will compete in 2 competitions using insights from this first to improve performance in the second, bringing real-world data analysis, iteration, and engineering decision-making into the competition.
This map shows the distribution of teams competing in Michigan in 2024. Using this, we have strategically placed our 5 competitions, each one a key engineering or mobility hub, ideal for local sponsorship, judge recruitment, and team access. Most teams will be within reasonable driving distance of at least 2 events. We have also researched potential sponsors for each of these events that can be seen on page 3 of the handout.
To allow teams time to apply lessons from their first event, the 5 competitions are spaced such that each team has at least a month between the 2 competitions they are most likely to compete in. With the series taking place over the summer, teams still have the full academic year to design and build their prototypes. Each of the competitions will follow a 3-day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday competition format, which includes a tech day on Thursday, followed by a tech and dynamic day on Friday, then by endurance on Saturday. This allows volunteers less time to take less time off of work than they currently do.
Additionally, we will be adding a new pre-tech process with local SAE chapters. Here, teams will coordinate with their local SAE chapter for inspections on components that are difficult to alter, such as SES, driver egress, driver gear, and for EV teams, the accumulator, all to be inspected at home in the team's workshop. For EV teams, a tamper seal will be added to the accumulator to ensure it isn't modified after initial inspection. Then, judges will provide teams with a list of action items after inspecting the rest of the vehicle to make sure they can pass tech at the final competition.
In order to support learning throughout the design process, we're restructuring the design event into 2 stages and moving it online. In May, teams will participate in an initial virtual design review, covering the same core principles as the current design event. At the end of the series, teams will take part in a follow-up design scrum, where they'll present lessons learned, data-driven insights, and how they addressed any weaknesses throughout the competition. emphasizes the team's ability to analyze results, implement improvements, and validate any changes.
To better reflect real-world business management, we're updating the cost event into the new operational strategy event. Here, teams will present both the real cost to manufacture their car and the full cost of operating their team. They'll outline their sponsorship approach, marketing strategy, and any operational decisions or challenges faced throughout the year. Each year, they'll also respond to a scenario similar to the current cost event, such as scaling to low-volume production or managing a budget cut. These teams function like small businesses already, and here we want them to think like it.
Scoring will remain out of 1,000 points, with dynamic events using the same scaled system. Each of the team's 2 competitions will be averaged to determine their final series score. To ensure fairness across all competitions, we're implementing a competitiveness multiplier, which can be seen on page 6 of the handout. This ensures performances at tougher events are weighted appropriately. Design will now total 200 points, 125 for the initial review and 75 for the follow-up design scrum. The series champion will be named in August. While our proposal brings in a large restructuring of the competition, we are also proposing some changes to the vehicle in order to ensure shorter tech inspection, less design time for teams, and to avoid additional costs. First, we're combining the competitions such that electric, combustion, and hybrid cars are all competing at the same events in their own respective classes. This removes the IC, EV, and hybrid competitions in favor of competitions involving all 3.
We will also be introducing the standardization of 3 electronics modules. Because this new format relies on shorter tech processes to remain cost-effective, these standard parts allow for more confidence in both vehicle safety and reliability. It also aligns with what engineers will face in the automotive, motorsports, or any other industry where they have to integrate with components developed by outside suppliers and implement them directly into their vehicles.
Using data from the organizers of FSAE Michigan and the Pittsburgh Shootout, we estimate the new FSAE series will cost about $1.12 million to run. That includes $200,000 for track rentals, about $800,000 for event infrastructure, and $119,000 for volunteer resources. An expanded version of this estimation can be seen on page 8 of the handout. While that is an 11.6% increase over the current $1 million cost, it's balanced by 2 key factors. First, regional events open the door to local sponsorship. Second, shorter travel distances make it more accessible to teams, especially in areas like the Southwest, where getting to Michigan today might take up most of a team's budget.
We're proposing a phased rollout over the next 4 years. Between now and 2026, we will develop online learning modules for members of local SAE chapters interested in doing pre-tech to ensure they know just how to inspect these vehicles. In 2026, the design event will move online to align with its future state. For that competition, teams will also have the option of having their vehicles inspected by their local SAE chapter prior to competition if their representatives have completed the online modules. By the start of the 2027 season, at least 2 of the 5 future venues will be finalized. For that competition, the new operational strategy and design events will be rolled out within the traditional FSAE Michigan format. For 2028, 2 new competitions will be added, allowing FSAE Michigan IC and EV to be combined. For that competition, the standard parts teams will have the option of using the standard parts as a trial run for the 2029 season. By the end of 2028, all of the remaining venues will be finalized such that by 2029, the new format is fully in place across all competitions.
Our proposed Formula SAE series not only tackles the current limitations of the format, but also strengthens its core mission, helping students learn. This allows being more accessible to teams, safer for students, more desirable to new sponsors, and increases awareness for SAE chapters, while also building better engineers through real iteration and development. With your support, we can build a competition where every team can compete and everyone can learn. Thank you.
We'll now go to Q&A.
research based on 100 teams being at electric and 120 being at combustion, with with teams trying to compete at 2 competitions, we found 70 to be the sweet spot. In our kind of how we were thinking about it, we would probably, in the first couple of years, keep it at 70 teams for all of the competitions, but then if we find that there's more demand for one competition over another, we can shift and reallocate those resources based on demand.
How do you see this coexisting with or affecting things like Pittsburgh Shootout, New Hampshire, Formula Hybrid Electric?
That's a great question. I can actually bring up, on you've kind of got 2 questions there, right? On the hybrid side, it would be removing the hybrid competition. Right now it's a SAE collegiate competition, and so this is combining hybrid, combustion, and electric all into one. So there will no longer be a need for the hybrid competition. For the on the side of the shootouts are much cheaper to run. This is the actual price breakdown from the Pittsburgh Shootout provided to us by cost judge Emily Anthony. And so for that, I still see the shootouts going on because they're still throughout the year. They still are able to make up the cost of these competitions. So it would not be getting rid of them. It would be more just adding official competitions.
And we could also work around their schedule. I'm sure they could be flexible with us as well, because last year the Pittsburgh Shootout was in the middle of September, and this year it's the first week of August. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there that we could work with.
And I saw SWOT analysis in your appendix. Could you walk me through that, please?
Yep, it's also on the last page of the handout if you want to go through that. You want to?
Yeah, so some of the strengths that we identified is that we're really trying to align with FSAE's mission, which is something that we think that they're failing at this current moment. Obviously, some of the weaknesses are that there's higher costs, there's a huge logistical problem, but that could be overcome by making sure there's proper management at the head of it. Kaylee Zundel's done a great job at organizing this event, and we feel that she'd be a great fit for overseeing the 5 competitions, while there's somebody like her in a role at each of those 5 competitions, so that they could work together to make this all happen.
Yeah, for opportunities, the biggest thing is it's making it more accessible for teams to enter, both in terms of bringing new teams in, because if I'm a low-budget team from Southern California, where my budget doesn't really work for getting all the way to Michigan, it's tough, right? But also, on the other end, if I'm a team that I go out there, this is our only competition, and my car breaks down in acceleration and I can't run anything else, I'm totally losing out, right? And then our main threats are going to be, A, pushback from current sponsors. They're going to have more logistic load if they want to go to every single one of these events. However, we would bring in local sponsors to each of these events to mitigate that. And then also overall, just overall burnout potentially for the organizers. It's a lot of work, and we understand that, but we think it's overall for the betterment of everybody competing.
Can we go back to page 20? I don't know if it's 20 or 21. I was trying to keep up with it all. Maybe it's 21. When you're talking about this, they're kind of similar-ish. That number there that you have, right, so the 1.01 million for the 24 event.
Yes, that's to cover the cost of both IC and EV currently.
So that's for both ICE and EV events.
Yes.
So then this next one where you have at 1.08 million, that's for all 5 events?
Yes, correct.
So you're saying 2 events to 1 event, and it's only $700,000?
Yeah, of course. I really...
70,000. 70.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the premise of that question, because obviously we don't want to say, hey, we're going to add 5 competitions when it's never going to make sense. The main reason there's not a huge increase in that is due to the fact that all of the competitions are now smaller, right? And so if you look at the cost breakdown on the handout.
Also, to go back to your question, that number was wrong on there. It's $1.12 million to run the new series. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and so the way these numbers are determined were based on, we took what, like fixed costs that are just dependent on the number of competitions you have, right? Like the AV equipment, that's mostly trophies and stuff like that. That's going to be dependent on just having a competition, right? So we scaled that to just 5 times. Then things that are just number of days, determined by the number of days, such as like generator rental, that's scaled just by down by the number of days. And then for things like porta potties, stuff like that, where it's determined by the number of days for the rental, but also the number of teams there, it's scaled based on that.
But I guess one of the things that I'm struggling with also is since you're going to have ICE, EV, and hybrid all at the same competition, those are going to be different support that you're going to have for each of those, right? It's not going to be the same volunteers, so you're going to actually need more volunteers than less.
Well, we'll need to have less volunteers because there's just less teams. That hybrid, they're going through tech on both sides of it because they have, EV and combustion judges already there. And so there's processes already in place for 2 different things. And so I think that's where this will really play into that because you already need both for hybrid. So if you're having all 3, there's already both of those types of tech judges there.
And with it, just a shorter competition overall, with the Thursday, Friday, Saturday format, volunteers only have to take off 2 days of work versus the 3, 4, or 5 days of work, which we believe will mitigate any volunteer logistics issues.
I'm also really curious on this, on the cost slide you've got, or the table you've got here. The 2 competitions, I think they're total 11 days. One goes from Monday to Saturday. The other goes from Tuesday to Saturday. That you got that at 172,000. What you're proposing here is 5 competitions, 3 days each, 15 days total.
Yep.
How do we reduce the cost of this by a factor of 4? So you're going from 172,000 to 42,000 for the total cost of venue rental.
Oh, yes. I understand your question. So the main reason for the venue rental number is going to be that with fewer teams there, you don't have to get huge venues, right? And so for a 70-team competition, MIS accommodates 120 teams, right? Because that's what competes at combustion. We don't need a 120-team venue when we're only going to have 70. It doesn't make sense. And so we actually researched potential venues at each of these locations. And so for each of them, we looked for kind of a more recognizable venue if we want to keep the kind of allure of the venue, and a kind of lesser known or more budget-friendly venue.
And when they used to have Formula SAE North, they used to just compete in a parking lot of an ice rink. So there's definitely better venues than that out there that still will decrease the cost of the total competition.
And you have cost data for all of these that bundles into this breakdown here?
Yes. So we've reached out to all of these, and that is kind of a rough average of all of them.
Okay.
Can you take me through the FSAE pre-tech?
Yes, I love this. We can go back to just the slide. So this is honestly one of my favorite parts of this proposal because we're in the Western New York chapter. The Western New York chapter, we hosted them for a just networking night a couple years ago, and we had to pay for the pizza because they didn't have the budget for it, right? And so, or at least that's what they told us. and a lot of that is just because there's very little, like, there's not much going on in Western New York anymore, SAE-wise, and so their entire chapter is just made up of our team, our Baja team, and University of Buffalo's Baja team. And so for pre-tech, your teams are going to have to reach out to their local chapter and say, hey, we're looking to do this, and work together to come up with a day where we can host you as a tech judge. You've done the online learning through the SAE already online learning modules, or format that they already have. And then you can come in, we get to network you, you get to network with you, you get to inspect the vehicle, and yeah.
And by doing this for teams, it allows these SAE chapters to have more recognition and allows people like us to want to go back to those chapters, because we all want to come back here and help here, but there's more work that could be done at home in your local SAE chapter.
Thank you.
I need to, okay, go ahead, quick.
Oh, yeah, so can you summarize maybe any other changes other than a few standardized parts to the vehicles themselves?
So due to the kind of aggressive nature of just the format, we're going to focus on those standardized parts overall. With the combination of IC, EV, and hybrid at the same competitions, we could also, if we want to change the vehicle more, we could kind of mend those rules to be closer together to then going back to the question earlier about volunteers and different tech judges. You could bring those rules in closer together to make tech easier, but we wanted to focus on just these standard modules based on just the aggressive nature of how we're reshaping.
Focusing on the competition.
Exactly.
And these are some of the hardest modules to implement for teams, and sometimes the reasons that they don't pass tech. So we want to make sure that by implementing some of the hardest things into the competition, we can get more teams through tech and more teams on the track.
Exactly.
Great, thank you.
I'll take the last question, and I'll give you all the final word. As Carr rolls this out, and we want to put a thrilling face on this, to you guys, what's the best part of this? What's the most thrilling part that gets you up in the morning like a cup of coffee and just gets you going? And I'll let Rohan take this question.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this. And so to answer this, I'll bring you back to 2 years ago. We came to Michigan with our third EV, and our only goal was to pass tech. The car could have passed tech, driven 2 feet, exploded, and we all would have gone home happy. That's not an exaggeration. That year, we ended up passing tech, completing all the events, and coming in 4th overall. We were ecstatic. And that very much pushed us into our win last year. And so, to answer your question, what really excites me about this is just the opportunity to give more teams that same opportunity that we had that let us win last year. So.
Last word.
Yeah, and so thank you all for your time. We've spent a lot of time shaping this, and we really feel that this will truly benefit everybody in the competition and ultimately allow all of the students to learn more.
We went 24 minutes on Q&A, so we might need to shorten this up. Gentlemen, our judging time is done. Would you like some feedback on your presentation?
Yes, for sure.
Do you have the information timeline?
Yep.
Yeah. SAE representatives, that's a plural noun, completes. It should be competes.
Oh, gosh.
Representatives complete online modules. Please don't put a typo.
Yeah.
Subject, verb, agreement.
Yeah, I think you spoke really well to the handout and kind of guide us along in there. Your appendices were fantastic. As someone who leads their own section, not chapter,
Yeah.
it's collegiate chapters, professional
I
sections.
see.
I think that's great. I see some issues with that. Like if I'm the executive director of SAE Florida, like Florida is like from tip to tip, you can go 13 hours of
Yeah.
driving. I don't care if somebody invites me. I'm like, that's a lot of work on my end.
Yeah.
But I really like that because it shows that collegiate to professional kind of transition in
Yeah.
membership. which I think SAE International does need to focus on more, so I really like that. I think you guys have fantastic speaking skills, your PowerPoint and all the media incredibly easy to read, so really well done.
My, don't like that you use the word flaw so much.
Yes.
Right? You're pointing out to me where I may be broken or whatnot, right? And I get it, that's what we're asking, is how are we gonna move forward? Maybe using some term that's a little bit more positive, right?
Yeah, totally.
If you say opportunities for improvement versus flaws, it's like, we know they're flaws, but it's a little bit different when you put it in a SWOT analysis, because weaknesses are followed by
But
opportunities.
it's also right
so
there
it's
on every page.
Yeah.
Yeah, current flaws, ops for improvement,
Yeah.
or just say improvement plan would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, totally.
But I did, I love how, this was an interesting one, I haven't seen one like this, where it actually had the titles and your moving agenda across the top. I loved your presentation overall with the background and enough brightness between where I can read it, not a lot of cluttering. Again, well-spoken, I love your shirts.
Oh yeah, the
And I,
little, I was like, I want one of those.
what does that say?
It's
our
another
logo.
RIT
It's the
racing.
logo.
Yeah, it's the logo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's very cute. I love that. Well put together. Yeah,
You had some startling one-liners at the beginning. When you have a startling one-liner, say, let me repeat that in case you missed it.
Yeah.
I think in the first 90 seconds there was that opportunity to repeat yourself,
Yeah.
to capture again the
Yeah, I
ears,
see.
the ears and the minds of the listener.
Yeah.
Let me say that again. That's always a good thing to
one
have.
more over here.
The only comment I have is maybe, I think your standardization didn't necessarily land 100% for me. It's true that a lot of teams fail on BSPD and apps, but it's usually because of the wiring and everything else,
Yeah.
not necessarily the
Integration
components
versus-
themselves.
Yeah.
What I think you would have maybe been you would have had a better opportunity to focus on, or what are the parts that teams need to spend a lot of money on? How can we reduce the barrier of entry to the competition? So figure out where do teams spend the most money year on year building their farm, and figure out how do we reduce the cost of that.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, I think it was a great presentation.
Good
Thank you.
presentation, but not 100% certain that I'm sold on it, but very good presentation.
Thank you.
And I think in my questions you kind of caught where I struggled with it, and if
Yep.
you cleared that up, that might have helped me sell it a bit better.
Sorry about that. I don't know
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
happened, because that was there.
At
Yeah.
7 minutes, I wrote down, oh my God, where's the education component? And then at 9:30, bam, you came right in. And that was the hard-hitting conclusion. I thought that was really well
Yes.
done, because I was searching for it, I was listening for it, and you had it well.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I would just say the only real thing here is I want to poke a lot of holes in the costs aspect of this. Like, I still think even if you're going at smaller venues, it'll probably still be around the same type of cost. Having like an ambulance on track is always there. Some things like volunteer and sponsor meals, I highly doubt SAE spends that much.
No,
on
those are that's actual
Is that what
data.
Kaylee?
We got that from Kaylee. That all so
That
we're-
food that we just ate?
No. All of those cost numbers that we say for FSAE and for pit shootout, those were actually real numbers. We didn't make those.
Yeah, it's like when you see it, it's a lot. It's for the IC and EV, so I'm like, maybe that is true, but like.
I will say when you give, these numbers are great to have, just be careful because it gives us more room to pull.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with these two competitions costing that much, the Pittsburgh Shootout costs basically nothing. And so we're still a lot more expensive than that with the competitions. But
One small note on that, you called Emily a cost judge. She's the competition organizer for the Pittsburgh Shootout, so it's like, and you know that,
Yeah.
but that's what is like
Yeah.
the standing factor of how she has this stuff. It's not that she's just a random
Yes,
cost.
that's better.
So,
Yeah. I
and then make
suppose.
the font bigger on this slide. That was the only other thing.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, we got another group coming in.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good luck.
thank you.